God bless you. God bless you this day. I want to talk about faith, and I want to talk about the tests and the trials that we go through. And I want to start by looking at 1 Peter 1 from verse 6. And it says, "In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by various trials, that the genuineness of your faith, being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ." And there it talks about how we go through tests and trials. And as believers, we all go through tests and trials. Our faith will be tested. But our faith is so precious. It is more precious than gold that perishes. And we may be grieved by those trials and those tests and think, what's going on, Lord? But He's there with us in every situation. And it's for us to learn to trust Him completely. It's so that our faith isn't just merely words coming out of our mouth, but that we are rock solidly established in our heart. You know, that faith is absolutely established within us, and that we are not shaken whatsoever by any situation that may come up around us. And I think firstly of how Peter the disciple, in his head, he said, "I will never deny you, Jesus, never." Right? And I'm sure he was certain of that inside him, inside his head. He was certain of that. And yet Jesus knew him really well and said to him, "No, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows." Jesus knew Peter better than Peter knew Peter. And sure enough, when that testing came, Peter did deny the Lord 3 times. Because, those were merely words. They weren't actually established in his heart. And also the fact that, those disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane all fell asleep, whereas Jesus prayed. But that's another thing. And one of the biggest tests that you can read about, to me, one of the biggest tests that you read about in the Bible occurs in Daniel 3. And it's when, King Nebuchadnezzar, who's a wicked king, he made this decree that everybody should worship this golden idol when the musicians play. And so most people just did it. But there were 3 called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that absolutely refused to worship this idol because they would only worship Almighty God. And the king, when he heard about these 3, was absolutely furious and had them bound up and brought to him. And they said how they would not worship, this golden idol. And it talks about how he was so furious with this that he heated up the furnace 7 times hotter than normal. So much so that the guards, who were there actually, perished. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the furnace. God did not make the situation disappear. Right? Many times we want the situation to disappear, the tough test, the tough trial. And sometimes God does make it disappear. But often we need to go through the situation, being overcomers in the Lord. And so they were thrown into this fiery furnace, the 3 of them. And King Nebuchadnezzar, when he saw it, was astonished. I'm going to read from verse 24 of Daniel 3. "Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, 'Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?' They answered and said to the king, 'True, O king.' 'Look,' he answered, 'I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God.'" So there, Jesus was with them in the furnace. There was 4 of them. In the midst of the furnace, the Lord was there with them. He's there with us in our tough tests, in our tough trials. But it's not enough for us to just have the words That faith needs to be rock solid, established in our hearts. You know, those three, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, could have, apologized to the king and fallen on their knees and said, yes, we'll worship the idol. We'll go along with everything. They could have compromised and gotten out of that situation. But they refused to compromise. They stood for righteousness, and God delivered them supernaturally from that situation. I know for myself, I've gone through tests and trials, all kinds of things. One test I can think of is when, I was out of work. We hadn't paid any house repayments for a while. We ran out of money, and I thought, oh no, how are we going to deal with this? Because I honestly expected that I would be supernaturally provided for in my bank account, that the banks would still get the money for this house that I'm in. And yet I wasn't able to. The money that I thought would come didn't. And for 6 months, we made no repayments on this house. And I was absolutely freaking out. I thought, I was applying for jobs and wasn't getting anywhere. And what really did it for me was when we had legal notices pinned to the door. I thought, oh gosh, we're going to have to move into a tiny caravan. I've got a whole bunch of children, so I was freaking out. And yet, I thought in my heart that I had rock solid faith, trusting him in every situation. But when this test came along, it really tested me. But the beautiful thing was that at the very last moment, I got a job. And the bank was actually astonished that they had allowed me to go without making any repayments for so long. That in itself was miraculous. And for me, the whole situation was completely turned around. It was amazing, but it really established in my heart, that test established in my heart that God is there with us in every situation. He never leaves us, he never forsakes us, and he loves us. We are precious to him. We set our eyes upon him and we love him and adore him and are faithful to him. And he loves us. He loves us so much, so much. And so know this, that you will go through tests and trials. You will be tested. But if you stay true to the Lord, if you keep your eyes upon him, he will see you through in every situation. You don't have to worry about a thing. So that's what I want to share. God bless you heaps this day.